Sousa Show. It is sports. It is Scotty Swingler on the wheels of steel. It is Cam Stewart warming up in the bullpen to talk some Big 12. We've got Josh Neighbors, who is all things Big 12, who's going to join us this afternoon, probably around 1:40 Central Time, to break down exactly the madness that is happening in the Big 12. We are presented, of course, by Slovacics and Crawford Austin Properties. And what a crazy, maddening weekend all across college football. It starts with the Big 12 for me here in, of course, Big 12 country. And I am a product of the Baylor Big 12 madness. That's how I got into this whole thing, and you can't really get me off it. There are a couple big things that I want to start the show with, looking at the scope of what happened over the weekend. Kansas beats Colorado. I can't tell you we didn't see that coming. Arizona State beats BYU. That did not surprise me either. Those are two shocking things that happened. Of course, Baylor beating Houston. We'll talk to Cam about that. Cam, he's kind of all Baylored out by the time I get him, but he's the guy that I like to turn to because he and I have been rapping about this all year long, and no better time to discuss it. The Kansas, I want to talk about the Kansas Jayhawks. We talked about this on this show a couple months ago. I had Cam on for a segment, and we were talking about Baylor coming back and bouncing back. We really talked about Kansas and Baylor, how they were two teams that were kind of lying in what do you say? Lying in wait. Kansas now is the hottest team, maybe in college football. What they have done, okay, never has a team started sub 500 at 1-5, and ever in the history of college football, and has beaten three ranked teams in a row. The Kansas football team, Devin Neal, Jalen Daniels, Lance Leipold, the whole crew. It reminds me, I think of The Wire when I think of Kansas, and here's why. Scotty, you've seen The Wire, right? The show? No. All right, Scotty's never seen The Wire. It is an all-timer, and there's an all-time character, too. God rest his soul, Michael K. Williams plays Omar. And when Omar is coming for you, right, when Omar's on your schedule, or you're on Omar's schedule, I should say, you're in big-time trouble. And Kansas is now Omar. Omar coming. That is the Kansas Jayhawks. I would tell you right now, I would think Baylor, lucky for them, they really, and Cam can tell me differently if it's a numbers game, but right now I can really say Baylor still is playing with house money, and they don't really have anything to lose. So they are the perfect opponent for Kansas right now to be on a winning streak. Between these two teams now, they have won 9 of their last 10 games in conference play in the Big 12. That is an unbelievable heater for two programs that earlier in the season were DOA, right? They truly were DOA. And you can look at the Big 12 and you could say, well, the Big 12 is not a great conference. They don't have a team that's head and shoulders above the rest. I really counter that, legitimately not being a company guy. That's because it's a very good conference. Look at this. We got a dog shit game for you, right? Let's see, the Big 12. It is, to kick off the weekend, you've got Utah and UCF, okay? Man, that's a game, when you look at the standings, it's who wants to watch that game? Both these teams suck. Well, you're not going to find any other conference in America where the worst game of the weekend, or one of the worst, has one of the best running backs in the country with KJ Harvey at UCF. He's a guy that when you watch him play, you probably just look at the box score every week if you're a big college football fan, and you see, wow, this guy's got numbers. The guy's awesome. He's dynamic. And you know how hard it is to be a standout running back on a team that's passing game has been non-existent all year long. Well, he's that. And then you have Utah. They have a top 10 defense in the country. You're not going to find that in the goddamn Mountain West, which is a major issue I have with. I was at Utah State and San Diego State this weekend, okay, working for CBS. And I was with two guys on the broadcast crew who I love and who are very smart and who are very good, but they were banging this drum that the Mountain West is great, and like, man, the Big 12 might not get anybody in to the college football playoff, which is like actually on the table, which is like craziness. And I don't think come hell or high water that will happen, but it's a conversation we're starting to have. And now it's like, oh, the Big 12's known for their parity and they have all these amazing games. And like, no. This is a really good football conference. And I don't know if we're going to have to wait till, and what kind of sucks is like, so let's say Arizona State makes it to the college football playoff. So now all our eggs are in the Arizona State basket. If they go out and they have one game where they're not flawless or they lose, it'll be a reflection of the whole conference. It's a really funky position that the Big 12 finds itself in. And I'm not going to sit here and say the Big 12 is the SEC. It's not. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that behind the Big 10 and the SEC, it is rightfully the third-ranked conference in America. I believe that. BYU earlier this season beat SMU. Some of the Big 12, the Big 12, if they lack one thing, and they certainly lack this, it is non-con opponent victories. Like I think that BYU SMU win might be the best non-conference victory that the Big 12 has. I mean, that kind of sucks for the conference, and that maybe tells you about scheduling changes going forward for some of these teams. Again, those schedules are so mapped out, but there are opportunities sometime to play other Power 5 teams or Power 4 teams, and maybe that's something the Big 12 wants to look at doing, or certain teams do, because you won't find yourself in these kinds of conversations. Kansas is Omar. You do not want to see Kansas. I think the right team to play Kansas this week is a Baylor team with nothing to lose. BYU had everything to lose playing Kansas, and it was clear they got tight. Colorado, they couldn't. Their defense didn't show up. I have a major issue with Colorado taking steps backwards on defense. We talked about Robert Livingston, their defensive coordinator, who's done a great job scheming for Colorado. By the way, we'll get back to Colorado's defense in a second. Their offense was still, Shedeur Sanders had passing completion streaks of 9 and I think 11 separately in this game, through like 4 incompletions, no picks. Travis Hunter had 2 more touchdowns. Like, it's not like their offense went out and laid an egg. Their defense played atrocious. And you know what an issue is? When you can't fucking tackle, the other team's going to score a lot of points. And that is exactly what happened to Colorado. A few weeks ago, I was actually listening to a Colorado radio broadcast last week when they were playing Utah. And Gary Barnett, who's a great coach at Northwestern, great coach at Colorado, noted that, this team has really improved tackling. They're not just trying to throw guys to the ground anymore. They're hitting guys, they're dropping with them, and they're taking them to the ground. Against Kansas, they didn't do that. They were literally arm tackling guys. You can't arm tackle Devin Neal. And they paid for it. They lost. They got down early, and initially I think we all thought they were going to come back. They were not able to come back, and so now here we are. Colorado. It's not I will say, I can tell you all day long how competitive the Big 12 is. It's not a good look to be going into your final week of the regular season and have 9 teams mathematically eligible for your championship. 9 teams. What did the principal say? Ed Moody, I think, 9 times. What was his last name? Principal Ed something. Ed Rooney, Principal Rooney. 9 teams. Now, after you get, let's live in reality. After you get past Baylor, it's like out of control. And Baylor really is out of control. But to consider that they still have an opportunity. But they do. And I can tell you too, from the stuff I do with the Big 12, like, they're not exactly pumped that it's come to this, right? That no team was able to really take a stranglehold of the conference. Colorado could have really done that for you on Saturday, but hey, there's a lot of talent in this conference, and I think that Kansas early in the season, we had them ranked in the top 20. We had them as one of the best teams in the Big 12. Why are we so surprised when they start kicking people's asses? I guess it's because they were 1-5. So, okay, you got me there. But they have a ton of talent on the roster, and they're playing awfully well. Baylor was the same thing. I mean, Dave Aranda, I was lucky enough to call a couple games early and sat with him, and he talked about the fact that the player, like just the physical attributes of the Baylor football player this year had changed a great deal, which he compared more to his teams at LSU when he coached defense there, as opposed to now being at Baylor, where the student athlete was just a different breed. He had brought some of those guys to campus that were a little different this year. Not exactly the Baylor culture, maybe more the type of athlete that played under Art Briles. Michael Trigg is a wonderful example of that. Michael Trigg is making plays by accident. Like, he is so good. He's literally coming up with game-sealing plays that are unfathomable. I can't believe that one-handed grab he made. That was an unbelievable catch. And Scotty, let's wax poetic a little bit about that. That Michael Trigg catch in the open field against Houston. First of all, one of the most amazing parts of that catch was he was still running over the middle of the field, and no caution to the wind physically. Like, when you are so opened up to get tattooed and absolutely crucified by somebody, when you stick out your right hand like that,
although the new way football rules work make that a little more difficult, but your point is still taken.
Yeah, good point. I may be living in the Stone Ages with that, but it's still, you don't see receivers embrace opportunities like that over the middle.
No, and honestly, that play reminded me of a tweet that Cam Stewart put out about VJ Edgecombe. When VJ Edgecombe made this dunk last week, that was just, he caught it back here. Yeah. He's like a foot above the rim and tomahawks it back over. And Cam tweeted, VJ just made one of the most insane one-handed putback dunks I've ever seen, and then walked away like he didn't do anything. Yes. That's what Trigg did. Trigg's running down the field, as you're saying. He's full speed, right in the middle of the field, puts one hand up and brings that ball down, and then the play ends, and it's just another play for Michael Trigg. Just another day at the office for that guy.
And I also applaud Baylor as a university and Dave Aranda. Clearly there was a little bit of smoke around Michael Trigg. He just left Ole Miss unceremoniously, basically early in the season last year, and was out of there, and was probably not your cookie cutter Baylor athlete. But there's opportunities for these kids when they come to a school like Baylor that aren't just on the football field. There's opportunities to become a better man. There's opportunities to maybe receive love and nurturing and attention that you didn't get in other aspects of your life up until now. There's opportunities for the Baylor coaching staff to give him a better experience and to make him a better man overall.
Yeah, and it's kind of an upgrade to, a couple of seasons ago and even into last season, Dave Aranda kept saying, well, we're targeting person over player. And man, as a Baylor alum, I love that in theory, but when your product on the football field stinks, it doesn't make me feel any better that the product stinks when you say something like that, right? And so remember, Trigg was suspended for a game earlier this season.
Oh yeah.
I don't know any details.
Which that really was disappointing to me, because I was like, oh man, this guy's been afforded this opportunity.
But when that happens, and then you see him come back, and still be supported by his teammates and make big plays and seemingly turn it around, and whatever that issue was, you hope he's cleaned it up and moved forward. That's what you're talking about, right? You're talking about Baylor being a place, not just person over player, but we continue to help players become better people.
And the Baylor players are helping. I remember I heard a story from a young co-ed at Baylor earlier this year about Garmin Randolph talking to Michael Trigg before the season, hey man, stay out of your own way. You're going to start the year off with one of these single-digit numbers, and you're going to have an opportunity to really have a special time here. And maybe that took a little bit longer to sink in than a lot of people would have liked, but here we are. And I want to lean on you now, Scotty. You have said something to me about a big change. Baylor's offensive line, dude, when they need yards, again, this is not a fluke that you continue to see bodies moving down the field. It happened again Saturday against Houston. They probably should stick to the running game a little more, and especially after we saw the early interceptions with Sawyer Robertson. What was the exact change that Baylor made that enabled them to? Because something is clearly
Cam
King.
would know better than I would.
All right, we'll ask Cameron about
they
that.
swapped a couple guys around early. Some guys moved to different spots. And yeah, man. And I just think whatever it was, moving some guys to different positions. There's a couple of guys that might rotate in. They figured it out, and that has been the most dramatic turnaround that nobody's talking about.
Yeah.
The other thing they've changed, and I love all of the backs Baylor uses, but Bryson Washington and Dawson Pendergrass are both backs that always finish falling forward.
Yeah.
And I think they very intentionally have used those two guys the most for that reason.
Yeah.
Is even when you get hit in the backfield, those two guys tend to make something out of nothing.
Yeah.
And that combination, that attitude of going to the power run game has absolutely opened up everything. And of course, I think the threat of Sawyer pulling and taking off
running
a couple
himself
times a game
Yeah.
helps as well. So they figured out all of those things. You also wonder how much did that shift when Baylor went to Sawyer Robertson as the starter rather than DeQuan Finn? How did their plan for the overall rushing attack have to change? Because you presume when you're starting DeQuan Finn, you're anticipating 50, 60, 70 rushing yards maybe coming from your quarterback each game. Whereas when they shift back to Sawyer, I think the need to have a true running attack became more present, with Sawyer at quarterback.
That's a very good point, because I was like, you had to hose me off earlier this year talking about DeQuan Finn. I'm one of those guys who goes back. I love a running quarterback that can give you that RPO threat and give me some option, right, left.
Baylor fans still talk about Robert Griffin and Seth Russell more than any other previous quarterback. And it's because those were the two guys who could just like wow you with their legs.
And even I'll tell you another mental hurdle that I've gotten over with Sawyer Robertson. It's like, even after he made the mistakes, throwing the interceptions, it's never a kind of guy where I see him drop back and I'm like, I'm worried. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the right decision is right around the corner, which is a really refreshing feeling for any team you follow, because it starts and ends with the quarterback ultimately.
Yeah, he's got, I think it's really apparent in his play, what every coach wants out of their quarterback, which is to clear it, right? Like whether you just threw an 80-yard touchdown or you just threw a pick six, move to the next play. Like you cannot dwell on it.
Yeah.
And I see that in Sawyer every game. He doesn't dwell on what he just did. He's always looking at the next play. And he's talked before, and we've talked about this, I think, on your show, like how his faith is part of what makes that possible.
Oh, dude, there's no question.
His identity is not in that throw he just made. His identity is somewhere else. And so he takes it throw by throw, and he's really good. I mean, that's something all the good quarterbacks share, I think. Yeah,
and the team kind of has followed him and through like dark times and then out of the darkness. Speaking of out of the darkness, Cam Stewart. He is our ray of sunshine. He is coming up next. Cam, man, you can hear him on the Cam Show. You can hear him on Locked On Baylor. You can hear him later on today with Matt Mosley. Mosley's got something to smile about with the Cowboys game. Boy, that was crazy. You can also honestly do me a favor. Listen to the Doomsday podcast. Matt Mosley and Ed Werder on the Rogue Media Network. They always mention Mike Hamilton, which I have an issue with. But either way, like I was listening to that this morning. Mike just walked in the room. I'm getting ready to leave, and Christy was she liked when Matt mentioned Mike Hamilton, which I did not like. Yeah. And I'll tell you, Christy, who's not like a football fan, she was just like in the bathroom, just kind of by accident while I was getting ready. And she laughed a couple times at the Doomsday guys. So there you go. There's my plug for Doomsday. You can hear it if you're a Cowboys fan. It is up on the Rogue Media Network. Cam Stewart is up next.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level when we shut down to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
All is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win and win pretty good. You know what I mean? I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame?
He is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I did. So,
Deserved, man.
Which seems like it fit.
Sports.
Pete Sousa show. And again, I think it's like we really have lucked out having Cam Stewart in the fold here because no, I'm not lying. Locked On Big 12 is piping hot right now. And one of the reasons, Cam, let me know if I'm telling you this for the first time. Cameron.
Yeah.
Pay attention. This is breaking news. Norchad Omir and Texas Tech's JP Toppin were no. Norchad Omir was named the player of the week, Big 12. There you go. Big 12 player of the week. That guy.
Does that wipe out the game against Tennessee?
Probably, yeah. And the guy, JT Toppin, was the newcomer. All right, let's go back. Yeah, not bad when you have November 11th, Hunter Dickinson, November 18th, Hunter Dickinson, November 25th, Norchad Omir. That's pretty good company.
Best big man in the Big 12. Finally,
whoa!
Award.
Oh, there you go.
It's these kind of takes, folks.
Cameron, Baylor's huge victory. What do you think is on the line going into this game against Kansas? Like, what is on the line?
All of it. All of it, Pete. They can go to the Big 12 championship game.
So you still believe there's a realistic path?
Yeah. Because anything can happen in this league, man. Like, I know that's a cliche, but you just spent all that time talking about it.
Yeah.
So they need to win.
Was that a good first segment?
Yeah, Pete. What do you want?
Come on,
Instant
Cam.
validation? Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I was curious. You know, you're a Big 12 guy.
So they need to win. They need to beat Kansas, which is really no gimme. Like,
yeah.
In fact, I wouldn't have been stunned if they were dogs going into this, but they're not. They're favorites as it opens on Monday.
Point and a half.
They need to beat Kansas, and they need 3 of the 4 6-2 teams to lose. So those teams would be BYU, Colorado, Arizona State.
Colorado. There's no way Colorado loses to Oklahoma State. You realize that?
And you think there's a chance that Houston beats BYU?
I'm more on Houston beating BYU.
See, well then we can get there. Kansas State could beat Iowa State.
Oh yeah.
And Arizona's not nearly as good as Arizona State, but it's a rivalry game. Throw out the records. They've got a quarterback receiver combo that can light up anybody.
You know what I do like about Arizona?
It can happen.
Going into that game, I was reading some stuff yesterday about Tet McMillan. I appreciate, and Ollie Gordon gets lumped into this as well. I really do appreciate, and I guess we're so like soft now, or our expectations are so low of stars. But these guys are playing. They're finishing the season. And I don't know if it's NIL money connected to it. I have no idea. But they're playing every game as though it were their last, and I appreciate that.
Joey Galloway's not getting in their ear, I guess.
No, forget Joey Galloway. Ted McMillan.
I was so pissed. Like, I have nothing against Ohio State, but I just wanted to shove that back at the 4 letters so bad if Indiana won that game. But what are you going to do? Then I get reminded that Dan Dockich was rooting for Indiana. And I'm like, I don't feel as bad.
Makes you feel a little better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it probably does make you feel a little better.
Yeah.
But those guys playing until the end of the year is fun. Tet McMillan, Brett Brennan was asked, hey, do you think Tet McMillan will play in that game against Arizona State? And Brett Brennan, which is like, you can tell the guy's got a stranglehold on the locker room. He was like, you have to ask him.
Nice.
And then they asked Tet, and he was like, of course. Like, what are you kidding me? Which I love. And then Ollie Gordon, oh, by the way, had 160 yards rushing last week, which is like the most.
Man.
So that is, by the way, playing against Baylor fans and Cam Nation, playing against a Colorado team who was completely eviscerated by Devin Neal. Maybe it's the Ollie Gordon show, and look, maybe there's something to that.
Maybe.
You know, it's a 17-point spread though. Colorado's a favorite.
BYU had Oklahoma State till the very end of that game
They
last
did,
year, where
on the road.
BYU was 5-6 at that point, and it was in Stillwater, and Oklahoma State win, and you're in Big 12 championship. So I don't know. I would say crazier things have happened. I don't know that crazier things have happened, but crazy things have happened.
What
in
are
this
your
conference
thoughts
this year? I mean, BYU was a shoo-in 2 weeks ago for a home playoff game.
What are your thoughts around
They lost to Kansas.
the Big 12 not getting a team in the playoff?
Like what I think of it, or whether it will happen.
Both. I want what you think of it first.
This might be controversial because of the landscape of college football. I don't care if they don't get a team in. I'd prefer to have a team in because I do think it's good for the conference, but I'm not going to be like these A&M people who can't win shit and they're just like SEC. Oh, but look what the SEC's doing.
No.
Like I've never understood that, and I'm never gonna be that.
I forget Baylor as a college football fan. You're looking back at this. I clearly think this conference is head and shoulders above some of the others.
Yes, I think I think a team like BYU deserves a spot. I think I can make an argument Colorado deserves a spot. But right now, Arizona State is the one that deserves the spot.
I will tell you this.
I would say there are playoff teams in this conference, and it would be a shame if they don't get to go. How about that?
I'll tell you this.
I'm not going to get bummed out like the way I think like some Mississippi State fan will be like, well, Georgia should get in at 9-3. Like that, that's bullshit.
I'll tell you this too, and some of the folks that listen to this are BYU people. It's been brought to my attention, but I would much rather see Colorado and Arizona State get in than BYU because I think they will put up a much more entertaining showing.
It's the ESPN argument.
Well, I mean,
which is fine, but in this case, because
it's a good argument.
Matched, it's not like you're arguing.
BYU has
9-3 over
sucked
7-1.
the past 2 weeks.
11-1. Yep,
they have, and Jake Retzloff has proven to be a quarterback who has he's pushed up against his limit of what he can do. He's had 2 opportunities, where he could have driven his team to like magical victories at the end, and he's thrown 2 picks.
Yeah,
well, one of them he threw out of the end zone.
You know what?
One wasn't a pick.
You know what? I honestly like. There's still that chaos, but if Baylor does not make the Big 12 championship, I think the Big 12 should be allowed to just invite Kansas. You know what I mean? I think if we're going off that logic of like the
NCAA
Jordan
tournament, like we
Travis
just
thing,
played our postseason tournament and Kansas won the championship.
Yeah.
Right? Like a conference
but
tournament.
It is almost like the playoff committee last year being like, well, Florida State can't win without their quarterback. It's like, Kansas State or Kansas really is the best team playing right now. Like we should just put them in. Like they have just as good a chance to beat Colorado or BYU or Arizona State as anybody in this conference. And for 2 of those teams, they just did. They just beat them. Like Kansas is legit, man. I'm worried to play them on Saturday.
So take me back inside too. Scotty and I touched on this, but you can probably give us a better, exact, detailed answer. What changed on Baylor's offensive line? That has
like
changed
this year?
this? Yeah.
Oh, jeez. You got to get a better mind than me.
Like, were there things that did they make
think,
personnel changes during the year?
I was going to say one thing that I think has really helped them that I've noticed from a fan's perspective is they actually have depth. Because we talked Sidney Fugar.
Yeah.
You talked with him on GXG.
Yeah. Waldorf, Maryland.
I mean, huge guy.
Yeah.
Just a monster out there. And he's not even playing every down. Like the fact that they can sub those guys in, they attack that position or that position group big time in the transfer portal, but they did it after spring ball. So like there's only so much that those guys can really get into fall camp and continuity. I think offensive line is like the only time you really need
brand new offensive line coach too, Mason Miller.
Yeah. And chemistry. Like I think chemistry gets a little overblown, but you do need it on an offensive line. And I think it really was just something that needed some time. And I thought I've heard some Baylor fans dissing them this week against Houston. I thought they played pretty well again. And they've been getting a hell of a push, man.
Cam just used the word diss.
You like that? That's busted out from the archives.
Were you talking to the bulldozer this morning? Did he say that?
I was talking to the bulldozer this morning. The bulldozer's been on a heater.
What is he saying? The bulldozer is Cam's dad. What's his latest?
He was big on the Kansas idea, going to the Big 12 championship, just being invited. He was big on that. He was talking about the Patriots defense yesterday, which got lit up by Tua and the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And I gotta this might
pull it up because I was
politically
trying to open it up
incorrect,
on the airplane and I couldn't open it up.
But I need this. Oh, I sent it to you.
Yeah, but I couldn't read it,
okay.
so pull it up.
This Miami offense is reminding me of the prospective boyfriend, and there's something about Mary abusing the mentally disabled kids as he pushes them down on his way to a touchdown. That's what he said about the Patriots defense. He also
Matt Dillon's character.
He texted me this morning. Does Daniel Jones understand that as a free agent, he's now competing with Colin Kaepernick for a job? That's great, man. Because he loves the idea that like Kaepernick still hasn't retired. He'll like text me that. He used to do it with Barry Bonds forever. He's like, is Bonds even retired? I don't know. Like he loves pulling that stuff.
What do you think about the Daniel Jones situation?
I was a little surprised, but clearly surprised because of the money thing of it and what they still owe him.
2 years ago, they won a playoff game on the road.
That's crazy, man.
It's the way that stuff changes so quickly in our lives and in the NFL, especially. It's like, what's going on? Like, and if you watch, by the way, like you could watch that one episode of Hard Knocks with the Giants, like Joe Shane. Like, I can't believe that guy still has a job right now. Unfortunately for him, I don't mean to go like all Drake Toll and rage bait all the Giant fans out there.
I got another great Bill thing after this.
but think about that. I mean, Joe Shane was like, no, we're going to let go of Saquon, and he's talking to the owner, and he's like, you know, if you guys haven't seen Hard Knock Giants, you can call up the episode where he's talking to John Mara. And he's like, we need to get more guys to protect Daniel Jones. And Mara's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, and you're like, and when that's what you have to be definitive. Yeah. And that's what happens.
Night last night.
Yeah, he sure did.
So this is a great potential Bill story. I don't even know if this happened, but I'm pretty sure that it did. So I was FaceTiming one of my friends from high school last night. And he lives in Rockland, so I get my Rockland gossip from him. And he was talking about chicken fry.
Yes,
and Zach
Brand
Bryan.
chicken fry.
And apparently a couple months ago, like their cat got out, like was at the parents' house and got out. And my friend was telling me that one of his mom's friends who lives on the other side of the development, like Zach Bryan came up to their door and like knocked on their door and said like, hey, have you seen this cat? Like showed a picture and everything. And like, here's how you can reach us if you need to. And I'm like, he went to that house? Like my parents' house is way closer than that. They definitely came to my dad's house. And I guarantee you he came up like middle of the day, Bill working from home, taking his headset off, going down and like had no idea who it was. Just no.
Did you ask your dad?
No, I haven't yet. I just learned this last night.
You've got to ask him.
Like Zach Bryan, I wouldn't say an A-list, but a pretty big
celebrity. Oh, he's pretty much A-list, but also
but not someone that a middle-aged person would know.
No, dude, you can walk by Zach Bryan at Walmart and be like, yeah, whatever.
But sometimes you get the vibe that like maybe this person's famous. You know what I mean?
Totally.
By what they wear and the car they're driving up in, probably. And I just had this thought. It was going through my head all night that Bill had no idea who that was. And like a month later, he walks the dog and he runs into one of my other friend's parents and they start telling him about it. He's like, I had no idea he was a country star. He was just looking for a cat. He was just looking for a cat. He would do this exact and thing. So I got to text my siblings about it today and then ask him because I don't want it to be sullied yet if that didn't happen. But I have a really strong
last question.
Yeah.
Chicken Fry and Zach Bryan, they moved a little fast. Like they had like a whole house together and stuff.
I think that's right. I actually don't know that for sure.
But I think they did. She talks about
it. Like I know they were looking at a house. Okay, they did already have.
I think they got a house together
in like Duxbury, which is
yeah.
Town.
So he bought a house for her. I think for them to stay. That's kind of fast.
That is, yeah.
right?
It's a little over a year, I think. Yeah. Those celebrity things, though.
Yeah.
Celebrity relationships, man, they take off. Ask him.
All right. Well, Cam, you can catch him today, ESPN 1660 with the main man, Matt Mosley, ESPN Central Texas. And you can also hear him on the Cam Show. And I don't know if they like here at the Rogue Media that I plugged You're Locked On, but hey, it's a big deal.
It's big time.
Locked On Baylor. Cam Stewart, thank you so much, brother.
You're welcome.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at 70 miles an hour. I was injured, had a concussion. The insurance company, they delayed. They were playing games from the initial conversation. They weren't going to help me. The biggest thing I learned through this is that you can't go through this alone. I called Daniel Stark. They were going to help me and everything was going to be all right. Daniel Stark got me 10 times the insurance company offered.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning. So we love Extraco.
You are here with your shoot first point guard, Corey Dickman.
Also, if you're not creating new fans in a small market, then you're not creating that base of people to go to games and pay for merchandise and pay for stuff and concessions at the Moda Center and yada yada.
Yeah, let's talk draft. That's the only thing we have to look forward to.
The only thing we have to look forward to.
That's what I will teach my son. You will teach your daughter as Blazers fans. It's like, look, the two most exciting times of the year for us are the draft lottery and the draft itself. Like, here we are. This is our thing. Give me some memories and thoughts. I know you had mentioned kind of the first time you had met Bill. What were some of those first memories that came back when you heard the news?
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
All right, it is the Pete Sousa Show on the Rogue Media Network, brought to you by Slovacix. We welcome in one of the newest members to the Rogue Media family. He's all things Big 12, too. I've been circling this dude for a long time, the host of the College Countdown podcast, Josh Neighbors. Josh, what's happening, brother?
Pete, how are you, man? Good to talk to you.
I mean, we got a lot to talk about, too. There is 9 teams. Right? 9 teams. We said we sound like the principal, Ed Rooney from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. 9 teams are eligible for the Big 12 championship game. Do you think this hurts the conference or does it help the conference? This parity and the absolute chaos.
I don't think it's going to help or hurt until you get to the playoffs and you start playing teams from other leagues. Because the big thing is, if you go and you're one and done, it just kind of confirms the idea like the Big 12 was a wacky, fun league, but really not in the end that competitive or factoring into the championship picture. If you go and you send a team and you end up beating somebody in the first round or whatever it is, you know, that kind of, I mean, whatever weirdness and wackiness, however many losses you had, it says something about the league and how competitive it is. So I think that's the big thing to me is it kind of really just matters, like from a TV standpoint, the excitement standpoint. It's fun now, and that's good. But really, you kind of make your hay, kind of make your reputation. I think now the 12-team playoffs, much like we talk about conferences, you know, at the end of the basketball season, right? I mean, it's like, okay, we thought this league was super strong, and then hey, the Big Ten gets all of its, you know, all 8 of its teams bounced for the first weekend. Okay, it wasn't a really good league after all. So I think maybe that's going to be kind of the vibe, and I think that's also going to apply to other leagues, not just the Big 12.
Okay, I love that you mentioned this almost like from a selection committee standpoint. If you're at the table in the college football playoff selection room and you have a voice, I just butchered whatever it's called, but you get the idea, and you have a voice, what team would you most like to see represent the Big 12? Like, who has the best chance right now to advance down the line in the 12-team playoff?
To win a playoff game, you think?
Yeah, to win a playoff game and to really make some noise.
It's going to be so matchup dependent. I mean, it's not BYU. Unfortunately, it's not. I mean, they've had such a great season. But, I kind of liken BYU to what TCU did a few years ago. But remember, in TCU's magical run, you had a bunch of guys in that team who are NFL players.
Yeah.
And from an offensive standpoint, BYU just does not have that. They don't have Red Sox been good, but not great. Their run game has not been robust. Their defense has been really strong, really good. And, I think their longest touchdown drive in that blowout win over K-State was like 37 yards. So they're opportunistic as well, too. But they can only kind of go so far, and their luck did run out. And once again, they played Arizona. They played Arizona State right down to the wire. They were about 4 or 5 yards away from winning that game. But and I had to say Arizona State too, because that roster just doesn't feel totally complete. Although Kenny Dillingham has done a phenomenal job. Kansas State maybe just because the quarterback, right? Because you think Avery Johnson's a different kind of playmaker, but he's been so up and down. He's had some great games, some bad games, as well. So, I think maybe he gives kind of the conference the best chance because of how dynamic of a player he is, but he has not played up really to that ability. And so, I know it's kind of a weird answer, but I think it has to be K-State just because he brings something a little bit different to the table. I know people might want to say Colorado, but it's hard to say that about a team that just gave up 7 yards a carry.
Yeah.
It really is. And KU is coming on. KU's 5-6, but you could make a pretty good argument. I think they're probably one of the best 25 teams in the country right now. I really do believe that. Think about their losses being pretty close and whatnot, but they really handed Colorado's tails to them. And Colorado, the second half of that game, they just couldn't get the ball back because KU just absolutely hammered them. And so, as fun as Travis Hunter is, as good as Shedeur Sanders has been, they can't run the ball very effectively, and they can't stop the run when it matters most. So I'm not going to lean towards a team like that.
When you talk a little bit about Colorado and you talk about some of these teams that are flirting with a playoff appearance, there is conversation that no team from the Big 12 could make the college football playoff. I don't see that happening in reality. How realistic do you think that possibility is?
They might luck out with that because I do think that should be a conversation. I really do, because Tulane, you look at Tulane's only 2 losses this year were Oklahoma and K-State, and they're pretty close. They're pretty close losses that they had. I know one of them obviously, being a Big 12 team, but they lost by 15, and the OU game was pretty close, and they also lost by 7. So they're 9-2. They're coming on. Army just got smashed, so I think they're in a little bit of a tough spot. And also, I think the people are going to be against Army just because Navy and Army as service academies went and played Notre Dame, and they both got lit up. And it's just something about the athletes at those schools. They're just not as good as the other athletes, at the other schools. So I think Tulane, has got a real shot. They're sitting right now. We look at the playoff rankings at number 19 or number 20, and Arizona State was right above them at 21. They get the win. Tulane's got a big chance this week against Memphis, right? You figure that they'll probably end up playing Army in the championship game. And so if they can get 2 back-to-back convincing wins, they'll be in really good shape. But I think as the Big 12 champion is going to have to win back-to-back games, it's most likely going to be the Big 12 champion. But I don't think it should be out of the realm of possibility. I think it should be considered and talked about because I think top to bottom, yes, the Big 12 is better than the American, but it's hard to argue that the best team in the Big 12 is much, much better than Tulane is.
Well, let's take a bigger view now, like from about 30,000 feet. Who is the best team in college football right now, in your opinion?
It's so funny because it's like Oregon's sitting there for us all to say Oregon, right?
Yeah.
And nobody's like the Oregon Ducks. But I mean, it's funny. I actually think about Oregon last year when they played Washington the first time, and I thought Oregon should have. I came away from that game thinking to myself, I actually think Oregon's a better team. They played Washington on the road, great win for Washington, but I feel like Oregon's a better team. They played them again and they lost again. I was like, wow, I was really wrong about that. Maybe we had that situation happen with Ohio State and Oregon a second time, but I think it's Ohio State, and the reason is because I feel like they haven't jacked it in the third gear on offense yet. But man, that defense last week, that pass rush. Once that pass rush gets going, I mean, when you get JT Tuamo out and Jack Sawyer creating space in the edges for linebackers to get through last week, and they're good in the back end as well. I mean, they just can cause a lot of problems. Now, they didn't have a problem in the outside run last week. Those stretch plays were really effective for Indiana. I thought they found something there with that offense. So, they can be hit, but everybody can be hit this year, right? And when you get Will Howard falling over against Oregon, kind of cost Ohio State. So I think Ohio State's got the best roster. I really do. I think it's neck and neck between Oregon and Ohio State. And maybe I should know better, but it's hard to see Dylan Gabriel winning a national championship. Like I think I don't have as much faith in him as I do in some other guys. And look, I actually think we've seen Will Howard win a conference championship. He did it with K-State.
Yeah.
And so I actually know he can be a championship level player. So I'm gonna say Ohio State. I don't feel excellent about it, but I'm gonna say Ohio State.
You do know better. We're talking with Josh Neighbors right now, the host of the CC podcast. He does great work. I want to ask you another question about when you take a look at college football as we head into the postseason and the playoff. Is there a team that you look at and you think, wow, if they can get their opportunity, they can really make some noise, like a dark horse who's in the playoff picture, who could really make a name for itself?
If South Carolina made it, and I don't think they will, but if South Carolina made it, what I saw from Lenora Sellers against my Missouri Tigers last week, it was upsetting as a fan, but he has become a lot better passer. And that's the one thing with some of these guys. Like I've been saying this, I said this about Alabama, and they needed to give Milrose some more support. But like, if Jalen Milrose is a pretty average passer, they're going to be impossible to beat if the other stuff around him is really good, because he's just such a weapon as a runner. Now this receiving core for Alabama and the run game has not been as good as it typically is. But I feel like South Carolina, just because of how well they played recently, I feel like they've got the hot hand, and we'll see them this week against Clemson, man. I mean, they got a good chance to if they put up they win by more than two scores. Like, I think we at least got to talk about them. At least be considered and have that conversation. But yeah, I think South Carolina would be the one that I would like to see the most. Whether it's the most merited, I'm not trying to make that argument, but I wouldn't mind seeing South Carolina in that situation, in that game, just from a fun standpoint.
Let me bring you back closer to home, where we're located here in Central Texas. What has surprised you the most about Baylor and the team's turnaround this season?
Yeah, man, I think the most surprising part about Baylor this year is just like Dave Aranda. I mean, he's not a rah-rah, get-him-going type guy, right? And so you think the rah-rah, get-him-going guy is the guy who can rally the troops. And the mild-mannered man is able to get the fellas, get them rolling. And obviously the switch to Sawyer Robertson has been huge for them. I mean, you think about Adam's core, like what worked at Baylor when they went to the Big 12 championship and won it. Their quarterback play was not stellar. I mean, their quarterback was the guy who lost the quarterback battle this year between BYU, between him and Jay Retzlaff, after being a conference championship, guy in the beginning. And then the other quarterback, Lake Shapen, is now at Mississippi State. It was defense. It was a running game. It was the zone concept that got them there. And they're kind of just using the talent they got on the roster. They're using the guys they've got to be effective, to make plays. And their defense isn't good enough. I think situationally they've just been really strong the back half of the season. And I want to stay off the personnel, because I think the thing about Baylor is, they can probably get some pretty good personnel. We've seen them with really good personnel before. They've got some money at that program. They're in a very good spot recruiting wise. They've got really nice facilities. And so I think this is the caliber of player across the board at Baylor step back up to where it was a couple of years ago, because I think they're capable of that.
All right, Josh Neighbors, again, the College Countdown with Josh Neighbors. That's the show. You can catch it on the Rogue Media Network. Josh, thanks so much, man. I appreciate all the insight you provide, and I've been watching you work from afar. It's cool to finally talk to you.
Anytime, Pete. You call me, I'm there, brother.
All right, man. Take care, Josh.
All right, have a good one.
You too. All right, we'll step aside and come back and wrap things up. The Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network, coming back next.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. That's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference, because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
All is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win, and win pretty good. You know what I mean? I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame?
He is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I did. So,
deserved it, man.
Which seems like it fits.
Sports.
All right, the Pete Sousa Show on the Rogue Media Network. Having a lot of fun today. It's been a jam-packed show. We're going to finish it off with some NFL thoughts. The New York Giants are like in complete free fall. Talked a little bit with Cam about Daniel Jones. And I have it's just such an amazing thing what's going on in New York. You're the number one media market in the world. I mean, and you can't have, there's no winning football team, like not even close, right? Which is such a shame with that rabid fan base. But what I noticed the most about this Giants loss, like the New York media, they don't have to look far for a story, right? Like Jordan Neighbors, one of the guys, after the game, he said, I don't know, talk to Dayball about that. That's his coach. And he said, go out there first, second quarter, don't get the ball. Start getting targets at the end. I mean, can't do that. Start getting the ball when it's 30-0. What do you want me to do? Jordan Neighbors is their star player. Malik Neighbors, sorry. Yeah, I got neighbors everywhere. Appreciate it. Jordan Neighbors is a former Baylor receiver competing at Abilene Christian. On the FCS level, they're in the playoffs, and so am I. I'm actually calling an FCS playoff game on Saturday in Tarleton. So ESPN has me with Tarleton and Drake, a program which I'll be learning a lot about over the course of the next week. I know Tarleton. I had them earlier this year. I'm pumped to see how they do it. Coach Todd Witten's team is pretty cool. First year up in the FCS, and they're in the playoffs. First team to do that since 2009. But back to the NFL. So outside of Malik Neighbors, there were other guys in the Giants locker room questioning effort, saying that players aren't playing 100%. This is where I step up on my soapbox. Having been around football for a while, been around the college game specifically, I just don't understand how you don't give 100%. First of all, football is fun. It's fun. It's a fun game. We're having fun. We're playing sports. I get it. You go to practice. The drills suck. Maybe fake an injury so you don't have to be in some of the drills or practice. I honestly, I'm not okay with that, but I see how it happens, right? Especially in the NFL. But to walk onto the field and to not give 110%, we've heard this a couple times this year. Earlier in the year, Antonio Pierce talked about the Raiders, said watching the film, some guys are making business decisions, and that's going to change business decisions, i.e., like, I'm not getting hurt for this shit show of a team. So I'm going to step out of the way of this tackle late in the game rather than make it. I mentioned the Giants talking about their guys not giving 100% effort. It was said earlier, the Cowboys, you can honestly say earlier in the season, Dak Prescott was talking about practice habits, but I never heard, and I haven't seen it. The Cowboys, I have not seen a player or specific sequence where I haven't seen 110%. But like, how do you not give 100% when you're making so much money doing something that you love? 7 seconds, the average play lasts. Not even that, like 3.5. Like, bust your ass for that amount of time and then go back into the huddle. Or maybe they're playing hurry up. Like, it really is beyond me that guys don't give 100%. And you can also get hurt if you're not giving 100%. So that is something that, like, really has grabbed me a couple times this season. I just don't understand how football players can quit. I know they're young men. I know they have a ton of money. And I know, like, I had a bunch of, like, personal problems when I was young. So, like, maybe, I don't know, maybe I would have been a knucklehead that, like, wouldn't have given 100% on certain plays. But, like, I can't imagine that being the case. So it's just really interesting. Like, guys not giving 100%, like, still to this day, blows my ass right out of the water. We're going to give 100% tomorrow, right, Scotty? All right, Scotty says yes. We say goodbye. The Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network. Catch us tomorrow, baby. Thanksgiving week. Gobble, gobble.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
I mean, yeah, a new coach comes in, they're going to turn the roster. I think that's just we've got all these transfer portal stats and what Dion did and what Fritz has done. I mean, that's the deal, man. That's the game that's being played nowadays.
Maybe a little bit unknown at quarterback. I mean, unknown to the rest of the world, but you know, he dove into the portal and got a guy who is super, super athletic.
South Dakota State's really good. Give us a little bit of breakdown about what they can do and what Oklahoma State needs to be worried about.
But look at that form right there. I need to say nothing else about this because I found one.
It is Matt Mosley, and it's the Obstructed View podcast, Rogue Media Network. I think they're learning that there's really no wonderful view of me. See, I feel like they think this feed's going to be really wonderful.
There must have been no BS, like 20 scouts, 15 to 20 NBA scouts there to see him, and he was top 5.
When your old number wasn't working, I went through various channels to track you down. So unfortunately, you can never get away from me. But I'm happy. No. I'm happy to have you today.
No, thanks for having me. And you know we always family, no matter where I'm at.
All is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win, and win pretty good. You know what I mean? I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame?
He is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I did.
So,
Deserving, man.
which seems like it fits.
Welcome to a special edition of the Doomsday Podcast. Look at this. We got one of the great golfers in the world, certainly one of the great pass rushers in NFL history.
But he also had a vision for you. And so it was like you had the best of both worlds, right? You had somebody on you early, and then you had somebody who was maybe more relaxed. What were a couple of your biggest takeaways?
The person you referred to that I spoke with, I've spoken to some personnel people and general managers of the league to get some, independent, objective assessments of the players the Cowboys picked, and we'll go through that.
Has the general manager changed at all in the draft for you?
Nope, it's been the same since I was here the last time.
We are Rogue Media Sports.